Following on from our work from graphs today, I want to have a look at the frequency distribution table and have a look at some other graphs as well. So what I've done is I've gone to Census at Schools, which is kind of a cool site. It collects data off students, and I've got the right foot length of 40 different students. What I'm going to do is I'm going to organise this data. So here's the raw data. I want to organise it in a form that makes it easy to read, and that's when we use the frequency distribution table. And so the frequency distribution table, a basic one, has three columns: score, tally and frequency. Score is often represented by X and frequency often represented by F. So to complete this table, I'm firstly going to have to work out my lowest and highest scores. Now I've had a look through this data earlier and I've seen that 19 is the shortest foot and 32 is the longest foot there. So in my score column here, I'm going to go from 19, so that all the scores are now listed from 19 through to 32. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to organise the data and keep track of it as I do it. So I'm going to start to cross it off here. I'm going to go 23 and put a tally mark next to 23. 19, tally mark 27. So now, having done all my tallies, I want to just quickly add up the tallies to get my frequency. So at the end, I can simply add up my frequencies, quickly add them up down here and check they do in fact add up to 40, which matches the data over here. It comes from the census school, 40 students. Okay, my next step will be to represent this data on a frequency histogram and then draw the frequency polygon. And so for my frequency histogram, up the side here I'm going to have the frequency, and across the bottom I'll have the score. So my scores start at 19. Now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to actually want to leave half a gap before I start my column. So I'm going to put 19 on the score on each of these lines. Okay, and up the side I need to mark my frequency. So if I have a look down my list of frequencies here, I see it goes from 0 all the way to 8. So what I want to do next, I want to draw the columns up, the height of each of the frequency. I'm going to leave this half a gap to start, and I come up to 2 for the first one. I'm going to draw in a column that's 2 high. My next column is only 1 high. Next column is 4 high. And there we have the frequency histogram. Now to draw the polygon, a couple of little errors there that I'll have to get rid of. To draw the polygon, I want to connect all the centres up with a line graph. So a polygon is in fact just a line graph. And I want to start my polygon at 0, and I want to finish half a gap afterwards as well. So with a ruler, just connecting those straight lines with a straight line. And at the end here, I just want to take my last line down that half column beyond the end of the histogram. And that's my frequency histogram and polygon all drawn. Now a couple other ways I could represent this data would be as a dot plot and as a stem and leaf plot. So with my dot plot I have a nice scaled axis, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a single dot for every data source. So I have two 19s, so I'm going to put a dot here and a second dot above it representing my two 19s. 120, a single dot. 4 21s, 4 dots. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this nice and neat, keeping the dots lined up. So first dot, second dot, third dot, fourth dot. Okay. By doing it that way, you can see I get a nice little spread of the data, and the dot plot gives me a nice idea of where the data is clustered, and it also shows me bits of data that seem a bit odd. We call these ones outliers. They're a little bit away from the clustering of the other bits of data on its own, someone with a big right foot there. Stem and leaf plot down here. So a stem and leaf plot, you have a column for the tens, another column for the units. So if I want to represent my two 19s, I put a 1 in the tens, and then I put a 9 and another 9, and that's a 19 and a 19 is the way I read it. I've got a lot of scores in the 20s. They're already in order for me from my frequency distribution table. 120, 4 21s. I also have 4 22s. So the stem and leaf plot with all the data listed, each individual score. The dot plot with each individual score represented by a dot above the actual score. And the frequency histogram and polygon with the histogram being a column so that are joined, they're touching each other, and we start half a column with the across from the origin here. The polygon being a line graph joining the middle of each column, going from 0 and coming back down to the axis half a column width beyond the last column.